The India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Deepika, and coming up in the next 1 hour. Early voting begins in 26 of 50 US states. Both presidential candidates trade barbs over issues of economy and democracy. Israel pounds bombs at Beirut and Gaza after Hezbollah launched drone at Netanyahu's home. Israeli Prime Minister says attempt to assassinate him is their grave mistake. G7 holds first ever meeting dedicated to defence in Naples. Ministers back Ukraine NATO bid, raise concerns over UN peacekeeper security in Lebanon. South Africa all set to face New Zealand in Dubai with an eye on historic T20 Women's Cricket World Cup trophy win. To begin with elections first, with US presidential elections just 17 days ahead, early voting has started taking place in 26 states and more are going to begin soon. Out of those 26 states who initiated early voting, on Saturday, Detroit, Michigan joined in. Nevada also began the same on Saturday, whereas Georgia, Pennsylvania and others have already started the process. In Nevada, people queued up at polling stations in an enthusiastic way. Las Vegas voters also joined and they faced their issues and expected that their candidate should win.
Trump, and I think that he's the candidate that would, that is more likely to revive the economy, secure the border, make a real path to citizenship, better vetting of people coming over. Strengthen the job market in the country.
At my age, I've seen so much happen, okay? And I just have to come out and vote for Kamala Harris, if that's okay to say. I just want peace, okay? I just want the values that she holds, okay, they're mine.
It's a big role. Nevada's kind of swing state. It goes back and forth. I think it's real important this year for me as a Republican. We need to swing it back to the red side, but not many electoral votes right here, so it's not insanely important, but it definitely has the effects to affect the election for sure.
It's very important because this country needs to be fair as possible. And it's just too much mess going on. It's just too much. I just hope everything turns out. And, I've been praying a whole lot for this election to go fair.
Well, it's important to me to vote, and I always do early voting to make sure that I'm able to vote, because on voting day I have to work. So that's why early voting is important to me.
Now, an interesting part of the early voting is that it gears up the localities, and even the shopkeepers start to present their products in a way that enthuses the voters for their respective candidates. A bakery owner started selling Trump and Harris cakes in Michigan. For 40 years, a bakery in the Detroit suburbs have been predicting the winner of the presidential election, selling blue and red chocolate chip cookies for Democrats and Republican voters, respectively, with names of the candidates written on the top. Candidates too have geared up in big way and are giving razor edge to their attacks and rivals. In a rally at Detroit in Michigan, Kamala Harris hyped up the voters who are going for early voting. She told them not to lose their chance. In the rally at Detroit, she urged especially the undecided voters by saying that Trump has no issues. She tells the voters that the former US president and her rival is hardly telling anything about how the economy will work or how he will generate employment. She accused Donald Trump to be self-centric and talking about mythologies.
I keep talking about somebody needs to just watch his rallies if you're not really sure how to vote. Because he spends full time talking about himself and mythical characters. Hey, Detroit, are we ready? Because the power is with the people. God
And Republican candidate Donald Trump, too, is not far behind in his attack on Kamala Harris. He took on his rival in a very symbolic way. In his rally at Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the former U.S. president and Republican candidate invoked the memory of golf legend Arnold Palmer, guns and democracy. He said Kamala Harris is a threat to democracy.
Threat to democracy, right? She's a threat to democracy because she shouldn't even be the candidate. They should have picked a candidate fairly, not just given her because they want to be politically correct.
Now, with just short of 3 weeks left for the November 5th presidential elections in the United States, both the candidates, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, are going out all to woo the voters of all hues. Women, Black voters, Latino Americans, Arab Americans, Indian Americans are among others. TD India's Amritpal Singh spoke to cross-section of Indian Americans to gauge their mood and explore what role they could play in November. Listen in.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the US Congress in June last year, he made a point of referring to Vice President Kamala Harris and her Indian heritage.
There are millions here who have roots in India. Some of them sit proudly in this chamber. And there is one behind me who has made history.
He had said this, pointing to Harris, whose mother was born in India. Harris's heritage is a sign of the role the Indian community has come to play in American politics.
As we become successful, I think most people are beginning to recognize that we have so much to contribute. For a long time, being involved in the community, charity and philanthropy was par for the course. But in the last decade, I've seen a significant level of engagement in politics.
Currently, there are about 5 Indian Americans in the US Congress and nearly 40 in state legislatures. Indian American voters themselves have the highest voting rates of any Asian American group. But the Indian Americans don't vote en bloc to a particular party. Like any other group, they have their own preferences.
Indian Americans have been organizing and mobilizing and helping get out the vote. Last weekend I was in Philadelphia. We were knocking doors and reaching out to everybody, and they have been big donors. A lot of huge enthusiasm has come out in support of Kamala Harris, her mom being from India.
In the current election, there used to be like mostly Democrats, Indians 70-80% because we are naturally more socially liberal. Both Republicans and Democrats have started wooing our community also.
Indian Americans are now a growing political force.
Now we are finally, at least in pockets, becoming a community that can influence the outcomes. There are many cases where they are feeling threatened either by legislation that's coming in place or by some elements who are threatening their places of worship, their places of education, or even their homes. And they're realizing that unless they have a voice in policy making, it's very easy for someone to get victimized.
It's remarkable how the Indian American community has grown in terms of its political engagement and civic leadership. Though still small in numbers, this well-educated and relatively wealthy community is fast becoming a growing political force in American politics. With cameraman Sanjay Jaina, this is Amritpal Singh in Stanford, California.
Shifting focus, tensions in West Asia have been escalating since the elimination of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. In a recent attack, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Hezbollah of trying to assassinate him and his wife on Saturday. Calling the strike a grave mistake, Netanyahu, in a social media post, said that anyone who tries to harm Israel citizen will pay a heavy price. Netanyahu's office said that a drone was launched towards his residence in the central town, but he and his wife were not home and there were no injuries. And now to get us more on this, I'm joined by DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre. Good morning, Akshay. Now, a grave mistake has been made by Hezbollah. It has been said by Benjamin Netanyahu in his late evening social media post on the recent attacks. Do we take this as yet another sign of escalating tensions there, Akshay?
Well, absolutely, Deepika. But how much weight would a personal attack on the Prime Minister matter when it comes to such a large-scale war? That remains to be seen. Certainly, it is going to have certain impacts, but how much? That only time can tell. And whether Benjamin Netanyahu will make this a personal thing as well, that also is a big question after the attack was conducted by apparently Hezbollah through a drone strike at the residence of Benjamin Netanyahu in central part of Israel. Now, the question also arises is the fact that escalation has been happening. But what is the new scale of escalation that is expected? Because when it comes to Israel, it already has been carrying out a full-scale military operation when it comes to Gaza or even the southern parts of Lebanon. Their troops are on the ground. There are boots on the ground. There are tanks that are in the streets of Gaza or southern parts of Lebanon. Again, their fighter aircraft, some of the best available in the world, are already carrying out raids. There are drones that are already mapping out the areas, doing surveillance. Their snipers are already in position. But how much of an escalation are we looking at now? Whether it would be from the Hezbollah side, because now Hezbollah has also opted for attacking a leadership of Israel, with the biggest example now coming in from the attack on the residence of Benjamin Netanyahu. But whether this would continue or what kind of support we are looking at coming in from other countries to Hezbollah, especially allies like Iran and Lebanon, that remains to be seen. But yes, absolutely, escalation taking place every minute, every hour, and every day as this conflict continues.
Let's talk about the current situation of the conflict also. The Israeli military have issued evacuation warnings early on Sunday for areas in Beirut's southern suburbs. What more can you tell us on this, Akshay?
Well, this is similar to what we saw in Gaza as well. First, there is a warning that comes in from the Israeli side that you must evacuate from the area. And then we see generally that large-scale, precision attacks takes place in that particular area. We saw this in Gaza. We saw this on the Rafah border. We now are seeing this also when it comes to the southern part of Beirut. In fact, even before the ground attack happened or it started, there were repeated warnings that were coming in from Israeli side that evacuation must be done by the people of Lebanon from their homes and their region in order to avoid any kind of collateral damage. Now, this is what we have been seeing, Deepika. Ammo dumps and other large cache of ammunition and weapons have been stored in many of the civilian areas. Perhaps Hezbollah is trying to find area where it can hide in disguise, but also at the same time it is risking the lives of the civilians, given the fact that the human intelligence and other intelligence of Israeli agencies is quite high when it comes to these regions, and they can in fact if given a task, find out more about these locations.
All right.
Then conduct strikes which can put civilians in the harm's way. So the escalation is taking place, and this is a dangerous point where we are seeing this conflict turning at this hour.
Thank you so much, Akshay, for joining us and bringing us the latest on the Israel-Hamas conflict right now. Meanwhile, Israel continues with its retaliatory attack on Hamas in Lebanon. Israel struck Beit Lahia town in northern Gaza on Saturday, hitting several houses as well as a multi-story residential building. Israel also carried out at least a dozen airstrikes on Beirut in the heaviest attack the Lebanese capital witnessed in more than a week. Huge plumes of smoke were seen rising over the city's southern suburbs, where Hezbollah's main base is located. Whereas Israeli army ordered civilians located in the neighborhoods of the Haretrik and Hadat in South Beirut to immediately evacuate on early Sunday. Issuing an urgent warning, Israeli Defense Forces said that the military would work against them soon. Israel said that those civilians are located near facilities and interests affiliated with the Hezbollah that the IDF will work against in the near future. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. Big blow to Italian Prime Minister Meloni's flagship project to divert asylum seekers abroad. Cuba restored power to nearly 1/5 of the island's people after the national grid collapsed twice in 24 hours. An interesting report on spooky tales of Halloween this season.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour with me. And now let's talk about the G7. Defense ministers from the world's 7 leading economies, the G7, gathered in Italy's Naples on Saturday. As per a joint statement issued after the G7 summit, the defense ministers said that they support the Lebanese armed forces in their essential and indispensable role for the protection, security and stability of Lebanon. The final statement, read by Italian Defense Minister, also stressed the firm support for Ukraine and expressed concern about the intensification of military cooperation between China and Russia, as well as the development of North Korea's nuclear program. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that the U.S. would like to see Israel scale back some of its strikes in around the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Talking to media at a G7 defense gathering in Italy, Austin urged Israel to opt for negotiations.
I say the same thing that I said about Gaza and continue to say. The numbers of civilian casualties have been far too high. We'd like to see Israel scale back on some of the strikes that it's taking, especially in and around Beirut. And we'd like to see things transition to some sort of negotiation that would allow civilians on both sides of the border to return to their homes. And that's the point that I'll continue to make with Minister Gallant. And I think, yes, he does take on my input.
Meanwhile, the European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, at the G7 summit, suggested that the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar by the Israeli forces could create new opportunities for reaching a ceasefire, releasing hostages and pursuing a political solution.
In the Middle East, Lebanon is at that moment the most important and pressing issue. Certainly, after the killing of Yahya Sinwar, a new perspective is open, and we have to use it in order to reach a ceasefire, to release the remaining hostages, and to look for a political perspective.
Along with the G7 defense ministers' meet focused on Ukraine and West Asia conflicts, trilateral talks were also held between the defense ministers of Italy, Britain and Japan in Naples. The focus of which circled around the global combat air program that involves the development of a 6th-generation stealth fighter. Now, the statement issued by the G7 defense ministers after the summit also focused on support for Ukraine's NATO membership. The G7 defense ministers said that the major democracies support Ukraine's irreversible path to full Euro-Atlantic integration, including the NATO membership. The statement also mentioned that the G7 shall continue to provide assistance to Ukraine, including military assistance in the short and long term in its conflict with Russia. The summit was the first session in the history of G7 dedicated to defense in ministerial meeting program. Italy holds the 2024 chair of the group that also includes the US, Canada, Britain, France, Germany and Japan. And now a quick update on ground situation. Ukraine launched a series of drones targeting Moscow and western Russia after Russia launched an air attack on Kyiv and Odessa. Kyiv has often said in the past that its air attacks target infrastructure key to Russia's conflict efforts and are a response to Moscow's continued air attacks on Ukraine. While Russian officials often do not disclose full extent of damage inflicted by the drone attacks, especially on military, transport or energy infrastructure. A day after Russia and Ukraine carried out prisoner exchange, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said work continues to free more number of Ukrainians. The president said the freed prisoners had served on various fronts, including some who had defended the port city of Mariupol for nearly 3 months in 2022.
All those who have been returned are now receiving the assistance they need, and we keep working to free our people.
On the 18th of October, each side brought home 95 prisoners in an agreement in which the United Arab Emirates acted as a mediator. The release was the 58th since the beginning of the war and brought to 3,767 the total number of prisoners returned home. North Korea has slammed the new multilateral sanctions monitoring team led by the United States that was utterly unlawful and illegitimate as quoted. The United States, South Korea and Japan on the 16th of October announced the launch of a new multinational team to monitor the enforcement of sanctions against Pyongyang. Now, this came after Russia and China thwarted monitoring activities at the United Nations. North Korean Foreign Minister criticized the team as Washington's misconduct of flouting the international order and as the most undisguised violation of North Korea's sovereignty. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has summoned a cabinet meeting for Monday to address the court's rejection of government orders to detain a group of migrants in Albania. A Rome court on Friday ruled that 4 migrants in a reception facility in Albania had a right to be brought to Italy, dealing a blow to Meloni's plan to divert asylum seekers abroad. The migrants were taken to Albania earlier this week by an Italian Navy ship. They originally numbered 16, but 4 have already been brought to Italy for health reasons or because they were minors. The court said the 12 migrants in the new Albanian facility of the Jatir they had to return to Italy because their countries of origin, which are Egypt and Bangladesh, could not be considered as the safe ones. In France, a vigil is held in the port city of Calais for a 4-month-old baby who died after a boat attempting to cross the English Channel sank on the 17th of October. During the ceremony, community activists unfurled a poster with the names of migrants who've perished trying to reach Britain. More than 600 people crossed the channel in small boats on Friday, the day after a baby died on the journey, pushing the total for the year above 28,000. The baby's death was the 45th reported by French Coast Guards so far this year. Now on to Cuba, where restored power is nearing 1/5 of the island's people after the national grid collapsed twice in 24 hours, plunging millions of people into darkness. The electrical grid first failed around midday on Friday after one of the island's largest power plants shut down. The unprecedented nationwide blackout is the latest blow in the nation of 10 million already suffering from dramatic shortages of food, medicine and fuel. Strong winds that began with Hurricane Milton last week had also complicated the island's ability to deliver scarce fuel from ports offshore to feed its power plants. Tired of the surmounting energy crisis, Cubans are out on road banging pots to protest blackouts. Protesters in the capital used rocks and a dumpster to block a street, hindering traffic as they banged the pots to demand swift action to restore the power. Police later arrived to disband the protest and clear the road. In El Salvador, hundreds of members of the medical and educational sectors took to the streets on Saturday to protest against budget cuts announced for 2025 by the government. The cutbacks announced by Salvadoran president includes a free on the payment of a salary incentive called the Escalfon and a decrease in the number of job openings. Workers complained about the government's allocation of public funds to other government projects and the neglecting of sectors such as health and education. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the globe. In the US state of Georgia, at least 7 people were killed after part of a boat dock collapsed, sending at least 20 into the Atlantic waters off the coast. Search for the missing people is underway after the incident that happened during a celebration of Sapelo Island's tiny Kulakihi community of black slave descendants. Australian fans of Liam Payne held a small vigil on Sunday in Sydney, the venue where boy band One Direction once performed to a sold-out concert. Payne, who shot to global fame with boy band One Direction, was found dead on Wednesday. Investigators in Argentina are now working to reconstruct Payne's final hours after saying the singer's death likely occurred after some kind of episode due to substance abuse. In Slovakia, a 66-year-old mushroom picker was airlifted to a hospital after being attacked by a brown bear. The man who was attacked by the female bear near the village of Kanyanka. An intervention team was dispatched to the area and residents were advised to stay clear of nearby forests. With an oar as a symbol of hope, hundreds of breast cancer survivors gathered in Chile to compete in the second Dragon Boat Festival. Groups of 20 women wearing pink t-shirts rowed in dragon boats of Chinese origin in Carén Lagoon on the outskirts of the capital, Santiago. Halloween, the festival of remembering and respecting the people who are dead, is the widely celebrated spooky night on the eve of All Saints' Day. The religious observants have evolved to a dress-up fancy play with representation of eerie costumes and uncanny movements. Let's watch a report by DD India's Ragini Sudhir on how the world is gearing up to celebrate the spooky night of Halloween this season.
The Mexican-colored folk art, London's Halloween to Q, Japan train to Busan, and Cosmic Con with furry dogs in the States. This Halloween season serves more than culture on the platter. The Halloween will be celebrated on October 31st this year. However, its spooky presence has already hit the road. Japan opted a quirkiest way of celebrating Halloween, with trains becoming set for actors to play zombies. It is said to be world's first haunted house experience on a running Shinkansen. Spanning 2.5 hours from Tokyo to Osaka, was inspired by hit 2016 South Korean action horror movie Train to Busan. Mexico saw a brightly colored folk art sculptures representing fantastical creatures of Alebrijes. The colorful parade celebrates the cycle of life and death and sees many festival goers paint their faces. The Alebrijes are statues representing imaginary beings mixing several animals, fantastic or real, and they come from the region of Oaxaca in Mexico. New York City, on the other hand, hosted its highly anticipated Comic-Con at the Havas Center in the Midtown Manhattan. Fans participated wearing elaborate costumes representing their favorite comic book heroes, movie icons, and video game characters. Meanwhile, in London's Kew Gardens, a Halloween at Kew was launched earlier this week. It is a new light trail featuring a haunted pumpkin farm and a spider web tunnel. Cities around the world are gearing up for celebrating Halloween, and the season is expecting far more than just fun. Ragini Sudhir Chore for DD India.
Time to take a short break, but still to come on News Hour. India's President Draupadi Murmu returns to New Delhi after successful state visits to Algeria, Mauritania and Malawi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi all set to visit Russia for the 16th BRICS summit taking place in Kazan. Preparations are underway in Uttar Pradesh's Ayodhya to organize the 8th Deepotsav on the 30th of October.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
News hour. Time now to quickly recap the top headlines of the hour. Early voting begins in 26 of 50 US states. Both presidential candidates trade barbs over issues of economy and democracy. Israel pounds bombs at Beirut and Gaza after Hezbollah launched drone at Netanyahu's home. Israeli Prime Minister says attempt to assassinate him is their grave mistake. G7 holds first ever meeting dedicated to defence in Naples. Ministers back Ukraine NATO bid, raise concerns over UN peacekeeper security in Lebanon. In sports, South Africa all set to face New Zealand in Dubai with an eye on historic T20 Women's Cricket World Cup trophy win. India's President Draupadi Murmu returned to New Delhi after successful state visits to Algeria, Mauritania and Malawi, setting new milestones in India-Africa relationship. On the final day of her visit to the East African nation of Malawi, President Murmu visited Sri Radha Krishna Temple in Lilongwe. The temple is an important place of cultural and religious significance for the Indian diaspora residing in Malawi and is a major center for community gathering. Later, she also visited the famous Malawi lake. Lake Malawi, also known as Nyasa or Nyasa, is the southernmost large lake in Africa and is the fourth largest lake by volume across the world. It is also the third deepest freshwater lake in the world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit Russia for the 16th BRICS summit taking place in Kazan. The summit, themed Strengthening Multilateralism for Just Global Development and Security, will serve as a crucial platform for the leaders to address key global challenges. During his visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to engage in bilateral meetings with his counterparts from BRICS member countries and invited leaders. Here's more.
BRICS, an important grouping, brings together the major emerging economies from the world. This year, the 16th BRICS summit is being held in Kazan, Russia. BRICS countries have been the main engines of global economic growth over the years. On Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin highlighted similar points.
This year, the average rate of BRICS economic growth is projected at 4%. This is greater than both G7's growth rate, which is only 1.7%, and global growth rate, which is 3.2%. This is a forecast.
President Putin echoed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's stance on BRICS, that the grouping is not anti-Western, but rather non-Western.
BRICS never was meant to against anyone. The Indian Prime Minister put it aptly of late. He has said that BRICS is not an anti-Western group, it's just a non-Western group. The BRICS does not counterpose itself to anyone. It is a group of nations that work in concert and have shared values and shared goals of development and take each other's interests.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Russia from 22nd to 23rd October 2024 to attend this summit. This year's theme for the summit is Strengthening Multilateralism for Just Global Development and Security. Leaders are expected to discuss key global issues. Ahead of the summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his efforts towards paving a solution to the Ukraine war.
Our mediation is wanted. We will gladly work with the colleagues. Same refers to our friends. In particular, I mean the Prime Minister Modi. While talking with His Excellency over the phone, each time he raises this matter and expresses his considerations, and we are grateful to him for that.
The association now includes 10 countries: Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates joined BRICS as new full members. BRICS Plus, as the organization has been informally called since its expansion, now accounts for 37.3% of world GDP. Siddharth Bharadwaj's report for DD India.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the country. Building on India's neighbourhood first policy and Sagar outlook, Indian Navy's ship INS Kalpeni arrived in Colombo on Saturday. The ships have brought in essential technical support tools that will be handed over to Sri Lankan Navy. In addition to taking in replenishment, the ship's crew will visit places of importance in and around Colombo. Amid the decreasing temperature, air quality in the capital city of Delhi was marked as poor on Sunday morning. Meteorological departments are saying that conditions are highly unfavorable for effective dispersion of pollutants. Air quality of Mumbai, however, was marked good, while Pune and Ahmedabad got a satisfactory pass. In Chhattisgarh, the 77-day-long Grand Festival of Bastar, Dussehra, concluded on Saturday. It accounts as the longest festival in India and the world. Goddess Danteshwari Devi is worshipped, who is believed to hold immense significance for the tribal communities. And preparations are underway in UP's Ayodhya to organize the 8th Deepotsav on the 30th of October. The event will feature a stunning display using 500 drones adorned with colorful lights, captivating the sky. The show is scheduled to last for 15 minutes and will be a key highlight of the main Deepotsav festivities, showcasing the capabilities of drones made in India. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. India versus New Zealand all set to resume test on final day after brief delay. Delhi hosts Half Marathon 2024, showcasing some of India's top long-distance running talent. And delighting visuals of colourful mascot characters coming together in Japan to entertain people. Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour, and time now to get you all the latest action from the world of sports. To begin with cricket first. After a brief delay on day 5 due to rain, the match resumed between India and New Zealand in the first test on day 5 on Sunday. New Zealand have resumed the proceedings for the chase of 107 against India. Earlier on day 4, Sarfaraz Khan struck a majestic 150 while Rishabh Pant made a brisk 99 as India were all out for 462 in their second innings. The hosts set New Zealand a target of 107. Rain brought an early end to the day's play just when New Zealand came out to bat late in the final season. And in ICC Women's T20 Cricket World Cup, for the first time since 2016, the tournament will have a new winner when South Africa and New Zealand lock horn in the summit clash at the Dubai International Stadium on Sunday. Here's the pre-match preview. Take a look.
The ICC Women's T20 World Cup is ready for the final showdown as South Africa will take on New Zealand in the final. Both the teams managed to get their act together in the semi-finals and keep their hopes alive for a maiden title alive. South Africa sent the cricketing world into shock by handing 6-time champions Australia an 8-wicket defeat in the first semi-final in Dubai. Thanks to Annika Bosch's blistering 74 not out off just 46 deliveries and Seema Rayabonga Khaga's 2 for 24. Meanwhile, New Zealand have reached their first final after 14 years after defeating West Indies by 8 runs in a nail-biting semi-final. The Sophie Devons-led Kiwis will be looking to continue their momentum and lift the title. If we look at the head-to-head, New Zealand have a dominant record in the T20 innings against South Africa. The White Ferns have won 11 out of the 16 games played between the two sides, whereas the Proteas have won only 4 matches. Both the teams were also involved in a no result. Both South Africa and New Zealand are yet to get the silverware in the possession, despite having reached the final before. The Kiwis have been there twice, losing to England in the inaugural edition in 2009 at the Lords and against Australia at the Kensington Oval in Bridgetown and in Barbados. Regardless of who wins Sunday's grand showdown, one thing is for certain: the tournament will have a new champion after Australia, England and West Indies. Sports Desk, DD India.
And thousands of people participated in the 19th edition of Delhi Half Marathon that kicked off from Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in New Delhi on Sunday. Delhi Half Marathon is a gold standard World Athletics label road race. Started in the year 2005, the event marked its 19th edition. Some of India's top women road racers, including Kavita Yadav, Preeti Lamba and Nirma Thakur, also competed in the race. Meanwhile, 2-time Olympic gold medalist Joshua Cheptegei also led a star-studded international lineup. And the International Kashmir Marathon 2024 began at the wee hours of Sunday morning with about 2,000 participants. The event aims to show the world that law and order and the situation has improved in the valley of Jammu and Kashmir. Athletes from different countries and celebrities took part in the race. Jammu and Kashmir's Chief Minister Omar Abdullah and actor Sunil Shetty flagged off the marathon. And moving on to hockey, Indian junior men's hockey team made an impressive start to their campaign at Sultan of Johor Cup in Johor Bahru city of Malaysia on Saturday. They secured a stunning 4-2 victory against Japan in the opening encounter. Goals were scored by Amir Ali, Gurjot Singh, Anand Saurabh Kushwaha and Ankit Pal, while Tsubasa Tanaka and Rakusei Yamanaka scored for Japan. There were some nervy moments as the match inched towards the final hooter, with Indian attackers upping the ante, hunting for a 5th goal. But Japan's goalie Koki Urikasa did well to keep the goal at bay as India ended the play with a fine 4-2 victory. The International Masters League, which is set to commence its inaugural edition, has announced the formation of its governing council. The council will comprise of 3 cricketing legends: Sunil Gavaskar as the league commissioner, Sean Pollock and Sir Vivian Richards as well. The Holy Trinity will be responsible for the operation and strategic directions of the league and ensure that the platform delivers excitement and entertainment to the fans worldwide. The inaugural edition will be held from the 17th of November till the 8th of December, with Dr. D.Y. Patil Stadium in Navi Mumbai hosting the opening leg. Olympic Council of Asia President Raja Randhir Singh praised Indian shooters for their impressive performance at the ISSF Shooting World Cup final in New Delhi that recently concluded. In an exclusive interaction with DD India's Narayan Singh, he highlighted the growing dominance of Asian shooters at a global stage.
India hosted a successful shooting World Cup in New Delhi, and recently we saw India hosted the shooting World Cup multiple times. And to talk more on this, I am joined by the President of the Olympic Council of Asia, Raja Ranveer Singh ji. Sir, a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
India continuously hosting the shooting events in the past few years. Again, a successful event. What's your take on it?
No, I think the International Shooting Federation is very happy with the Indian Federation of hosting the games, and worldwide also we are coming up extremely well. We are today one of the leaders in the world in shooting, and they appreciate that. And just now they've again a lot of the Junior World Championships to India, so they are there all the time ready for us to support us, and we all support them.
Sir, the way, as you mentioned, the dominance of the India in the international shooting event, here also India won a good haul of medals in Olympics too. So, do you think the nurturing the young talents is the key reason behind this?
Yes, I think people have got very interested in shooting, and so many of our top shooters have today qualified and done extremely well. So I think that's when you have, as we mentioned earlier, you and I spoke about this after the OCA meeting. It's very important to have idols in life, and when you have idols coming up in every, first it was shooting shotgun, which Maharaj Karni Singh has to shoot, then rifle, pistol. Now everywhere, right across, we are winning medals. So today you won 2 medals, one in skeet, one in trap, and that's the way it should be. And we are slowly coming up. Mind you, it's a top most competition in the world today. Top 10 shooters of the world, and plus the invites, so people are from here. So to win 4 medals is not easy.
As Raja Ranveer Singh ji mentioned, that the rise of the Indian shooting here at the coveted event like Shooting World Cup Finals, India won 4 medals. So it's a big thing, and Indian shooting is in continuous rise, hoping that this rise will continue. With camera person Rahul, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
Moving on, colourful mascot characters from Japan and elsewhere, including Hawaii and Hong Kong, gathered in the western city of Hikone to entertain the people. The event is part of local efforts to revitalize the economy. The mascots included the multicoloured Daruma doll-shaped Yakuman-san and the boiled egg-like Wakutama-kun. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.